Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Up next on Another View, the Another View Roundtable. Our pundits are here to share their thoughts on the firing of FBI Director John Comey, Trump allowing Russian representatives into the Oval Office with cameras while our press is kept out, Bethune-Cookman graduates booing Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, what happens when white cops kill African-American boys, and the National Urban League's recently released State of Black America report. Plus, some thoughts about Mother's Day. Wil LaVeist, Carol Pretlow, Bill Thomas, and Dr. Eric Claville are ready to begin the debate. Stay tuned. Another View is next.
Discussing today's topics from an African American perspective, this is Another View.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. I want to say a special hello to Andrea Lowe with the United Way African American Leadership Society, and also Kyra White of Norfolk State University. They're here visiting us in the studio and watching how we pull our show together today. So welcome, ladies, to Another View. We've got lots to discuss with our roundtable pundits, so let's get to it. Wil LaVeist is an author, journalist, and talk show host with WHOV, Hampton University Radio. How you doing, Will?
How you doing, Barbara?
We missed you last month.
I know. I missed you all, too.
Bill Thomas is our resident community activist. How are you, sir? Life is beautiful. Can you pull your mic up so that people can hear you?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah,
how beautiful life is.
Life is beautiful.
See?
Absolutely.
You know what? We can't even get out
That's all you should seek in life is pleasure.
Carol Pretlow is a professor of political science at Norfolk State University. Carol, how are you?
Wonderful.
End of the semester?
Oh, yes. I'm excited.
Big smiles, huh?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we're always happy to welcome Dr. Eric Claville, assistant professor of history and political science at Hampton University. How you doing, Eric?
Wonderful, Barbara. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so glad you're here with us. So, Tuesday evening, the news broke that President Trump fired FBI Director James Comey. It was a shock to everyone, including Mr. Comey. White House officials said it was because of his handling of the Hillary Clinton email investigation. But then Thursday, President Trump said something else. So let's listen to what was said on Tuesday and then what was said on Thursday.
President Trump made the right decision at the right time. To accept the recommendation of the Deputy Attorney General.
He took the recommendation of Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General.
Pretty quickly after, I believe, receiving that recommendation, the president made the decision to let Director Comey go.
Look, he's a showboat. He's a grandstander. The FBI has been in turmoil. You know that. I know that. Everybody knows that. You take a look at the FBI a year ago. It was in virtual turmoil less than a year ago. It hasn't recovered from that.
Monday, you met with the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein.
Right.
Did you ask for a recommendation?
What I did is I was going to fire Comey. My decision. It was not.
You had made the decition before they came in the room.
I was going to fire Comey. There's no good time to do it, by the way.
Because in your letter you said I accepted their recommendation,
yeah, well,
so you had already made the decision.
I was going to fire regardless of recommendation.
So there was really
he made a recommendation. He's highly respected, very good guy, very smart guy. The Democrats like him, the Republicans like him. He made a recommendation, but regardless of recommendation, I was going to fire Comey.
So, a big switch. In terms of what was going on there. The voices you heard in the beginning was Vice President Mike Pence, the counselor to the president, Kellyanne Conway, and the principal deputy press secretary, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and then obviously Mr. Trump himself. Will, what is going on?
I said on this show before, I said that 8 years of Obama was getting your tooth pulled with Novocaine. This is getting your tooth pulled without it. And the thing about Trump is that, just as the press has pointed out, he's lied a lot over this, but he says what he thinks, regardless to whether he's lying or telling the truth. At the moment, you can debate, but he says what he thinks. And so what you got was the political spin part of it at the beginning. This is how we're going to try to present it to the country and to the world. And then when you got with him sitting down with Lester Holt is really what he was thinking and really what it really comes down to.
Well, the thing is, though, why is it that that it doesn't seem that the press corps or the people who address the press corps can have one side of the story, and then he totally turns around, Eric, and does something completely different? I mean, why aren't they on the same page? Now he says this morning, well, maybe I have to put it all in writing because I move too fast and my press people can't keep up.
I was listening to Morning Joe this morning, and one of the statements that was made, and I think it really sums it up, we have now in office an accidental dictator. In other words, he really didn't think he was going to win, and now that he's here, he has no sense of how to govern. He only has a sense of how to run his own company, and his own company is really just a marketing scheme for his name and so forth. But what we have in office, and I've said it before, this is not surprising to me, we have an insecure, psychopathic, narcissistic, blatant, pathological liar. Period.
How you really feel?
And
don't hold anything back.
And look, one aspect, one thing that I'm studying now in Scripture is the concept of gal. And it shows where John mentions where you saw a man called Nathaniel. And he says, there goes Nathaniel, an Israelite indeed, who has no gal found in his mouth. And even those that come before the throne in Revelations, it said they're blameless without gal. So that shows you how much, how the value that's put on a person that has no gal and a person that does. So we have a beguiling, lying, egotistical, narcissistic, and I dare say demonic president.
Bill, wait, hold on, Carol. Let me hear from Bill.
I really don't have. I really don't know. Just quoting from the Bible, that's maybe why I changed my religion to something else. President Donald J. Trump is the president of the United States. He's ran a good business. He's raised children. He's not a politician. He speaks his mind. He sells images. That's what he's done before, and he's been pretty good at it over the years. And I don't know if he didn't think he was going to win. All he said along the campaign route is that he didn't get in it to lose. And he said if he got in it and he didn't win, it was just all a big waste of time. I think what he doesn't have is he doesn't have the political dressings that he should have to be president of the United States in terms of the trappings. He does not do that because he doesn't understand it. And he doesn't want to understand it because he doesn't respect it.
But do you think that it becomes dangerous for the country as a whole?
Yes, it is. It is. He needs to fix that. He needs to get his staff in order. He needs to get people and listen to them in terms of how you present and represent the President of the United States. Mm-hmm. It is something that's not his to be thrown away or wasted. I mean, he's done an awful lot of good. You'll never hear that, but he's done an awful lot of good. And he's just a man with a mission that is not politically activated. And he'll soon catch it. He'll get it. He'll get some of his smart people that are going to start losing money in their businesses because they could be making money if he would just get out of the road and stop stepping on his message. I mean, Chinese are now buying beef. I mean, that story didn't get out. I mean, there's a lot of good things.
Well, I was getting ready to follow up with you on that. So name some of the good things that you think he's done since he's been in office.
The illegal immigration is down, I think, 70-80%. I think the number of jobs created the last month were over 400,000. He's focusing on cybersecurity and jobs and operations. The business is a very, very good flourishing in terms of people are optimistic about doing business. I think from my standpoint, in terms of listening to people who are trying to be innovative and creative in the business side of the marketplace, understanding that education has to change and things has to be done, he's opened up his doors to his people so we can go talk to his staff about those particular matters. But on the other side, there's a lot of good things. I'll give you a list. There are some bad things. I think the good things is he's challenged North Korea. They can't have the ability to attack America with atomic weapons. We have to stamp down on that. I think there's a lot of good things. But all the other stuff that I hear people yelling and screaming about is the theatrics. And it's easily fixable. It is really easily fixable. He is a marketer. He can make images. And he just doesn't do it because he hates the press. He's got to put that aside. That's a personal issue. He's got to put that aside. And so all the haters and the people that are yelling and screaming at him for what they think is not good stuff, especially from some sides that are just kind of disappointing. And after all, and I'll leave it at this. Mm-hmm. After all I thought about President Obama, I thought he was smart because he was smart. I thought he listened because he did. I think he did some things that I didn't like. I just didn't like it at all. Mm-hmm. But I never called him a name. I never called him anything else. I respect his religion, his families. And actually, in the last day with things coming up today, I thought he was an excellent father. So I just think we have to guide it. Trump has made some mistakes in terms of the image that he has made. But that's important in America. He's got to fix that.
Carol.
Yeah, and I agree with all of you. My concern is, though, he has a cabinet, and because that is the function of the cabinet, they are to advise the president. And perhaps if he would open himself up to listening to the cabinet, they could say, well, Mr. President, we understand your position, but this is how we have to play this, because it is a political game, and he needs to understand that it operationally is different in the political system than it is as a business person. But he has to be willing to take advice, and he might not always agree with that advice, but at least try it out.
Well, he actually asked for advice, Will, when he asked Sessions and Rosenstein to write down the reasons why they thought Comey should be fired. But then he turns around and says, well, I was going to do it anyway. Go ahead.
Well, this is why, I happen to disagree with Eric and Bill on this, that Trump doesn't know and he's not sophisticated. He's been around politics for a long, long time on the side of someone who was greasing the pockets of politicians. So he understands rhetoric. He understands how people talk and how they form messaging and all. He gets all of that. He has as we see him presenting himself, is that he doesn't want to play that game, and he's looking at he's doing it in a different way, and he's looking at his base and how the base is reacting to what he's doing and what he's not doing.
In the past month, with white males and as part of his base, he's lost 10 points.
Right, and I think that's what he's moving and adjusting to. So, for example, I think when he comes back and he says, no, I was going to fire him anyway, what he's speaking to is, I'm the one that's in charge. I didn't have to rely on someone recommending to advising. I'm the one that's in charge. This is what I was going to do. And also, the way that he did it is classic. Anybody outside of Washington, anybody who's been fired, like I have, I've written a book about it. My book, Fired Up. When I saw this happen, it reminded me of my experience when I was at Ebony, when I was at Johnson Publishing. Somebody else comes in new, decides that they don't like you or that you are a threat to them in some way. Not that it's not about whether you're competent in the position. Clearly I was. Clearly Comey was. But I don't like you. So therefore, I got to get rid of you. Or I want to bring in my own people. So people outside of Washington, a lot of this is, I'm just going to be honest, a lot of this is Washington talking to Washington, journalists talking to journalists stuff. And outside of the Beltway, look, this is how. Well, I don't know if anybody doesn't care.
Hold on one second.
It's just that people are used to life operating in this way. And that's what I mean about Trump. He says what he thinks. He's not trying to play that game, and he's paying attention to what his base is, and that's what's going to make him move or adjust. It's not that he doesn't know.
Well, and Erica, you bring up a good point. Well, I was going to ask, really, outside the Beltway, does anybody really care about all of this? Is this important? Because I'm worried that there's some other things that may be happening in the background that we need to be paying more attention to.
There's a whole lot of them.
Sure. And I talk about policy and what's coming down the pipe. We just had Newport News Sheriff Gay Morgan at our NAACP meeting last night that I invited to speak about his meeting with the Attorney General and what the Attorney General now is pushing for. And the more jails, more prisons, it's a reverse from the Obama era and building community partnerships. But I have to push back on Will just one bit here. I never said he doesn't understand politics. But the problem is that he wants to run the government the way he runs his business, and you cannot do that. And this is very dangerous for the entire country and the world. I mentioned before on the last Claville report that what we really should be paying close attention to is all these Russian connections. Just follow the list of dead Russians connected to this campaign that have died overseas. Pay attention to the second part of that report, the Intel report that was leaked. A lot of people are paying attention to the salacious details of what Trump did, was claimed to have done in the hotel. But really, nobody paid attention to the money laundering accusations and things of that nature and connections with Russian financiers. And to bring a Russian into the White House and not allow American reporters in the room, but only Russian reporters. That's a slap in the face for this country and all the soldiers that fought on behalf of the United States at the end of World War II and the start of the Cold War to keep the Russian aggression at bay. You know, we have very short memories, and in the background, in the country, at town hall meetings, people are concerned about Russia. People are concerned about this bogus, irresponsible healthcare plan that was put up by the Republicans. They had 8 years to put something together, and they want to cram something down the throats and pass something that is absolutely terrible. Issue. So those are the issues that people are really concerned about. However, the people that voted for Trump, they didn't really vote for him for policy. They voted for him because of what he speaks. He speaks vile. He speaks very dangerous rhetoric toward people of color, toward marginalizing women, and the gains that were made through civil rights.
That's such a bunch of rhetoric. He understands what he needs to do. People understand it. People are understanding that they need to pay their mortgage, pay their rent, put their kids through school, look at how much college tuition is costing, a bunch of other things. I just think, and I agree with Will to a large degree, is the fact that, he kind of understands it, but the president is still the president of all the people. And he's got to show that. He's got to represent that in whatever he does. He's got to get some of this personal stuff has got to be laid aside. All this other stuff about the Russians. We've been having Russian issues forever and all these kind of things. That's going to all be sorted out.
But it wasn't. It was Russia, and then there was another country that also was allowed to come in. And it just escapes me as to who it was. Into the Oval Office. Our press not allowed in.
You don't like them.
They're putting pictures on social media. What is it? What kind of message is that sending to the country?
It's extremely disrespectful and dangerous. Trump talks about the press. They are positioning the press as if it's some other rogue branch of government. It's
kind of true.
Because they tell the truth.
What the press
the press tell the truth, right?
If I can finish my point, the point that people need to understand. Right. The press doesn't always tell the truth.
Thank you.
Right. The press represents the people. Okay. In our structure of government, the press is a check and balance against government. It represents the people. So when you have a Russian official, right, that a member of the press asks a question of, right, and that person just disrespects the press, like, I don't need to talk to you because in my country, we don't deal with the press, and you've got an official of the United States that allows that Russian official just disrespected the people of the United States. All of the people of the United States can't be in the room to hear or to question. So that's why they're there. So when people allow Trump and others to vilify the press for their own interests, for their own, what they're doing is playing these games. They're actually playing games with the Constitution and playing games from our freedom. When I hear people like Bill and his ilk talk about the government, the government this, the government that, our form of government means that we are the government. We're not China. This is not Russia. We are the government. So when they start talking about the government is bad and this and that, the other, you're saying that
the people are bad.
Yeah, you're saying that's what you're saying, because our form of government allows us to vote out people that are represented. You can't do that in China.
Well, the congressmen and women have been going home to their districts, and they've been catching it. Carol.
That's right.
And I think by the concentration on all of his antics, we lose the essential message of the problems that need to be addressed. And so we get caught up in, look what he said today. Oh, he's going to contradict that. Instead of focusing on the issues and the solutions to those issues, which our congressmen focus on when they come back to our district.
Yeah, and Carol is exactly right. But I want us to focus on what the president means. The president of the United States is the most trusted leader in the world. Okay? That is a very, very important position to hold. And when you make a mockery of it, when you make a mockery of that position and of your duties and your service to the people and the world, then we start to see the beginning of the end. Keep in mind, Rome fell for three things. Number one, their military was stressed out and they were fighting wars all over. Now look at the United States. Again, I teach from history, one of my prisms. What was is, what is shall be. We're seeing the same thing happening in the United States that happened to Rome at the beginning of their fall. And we have an opportunity to get it right, but we only have that opportunity if the people remain vigilant and if we have an open and free government to where we can challenge our officials to do those things that are right. Because in this world, the United States is the beacon of light.
Because corruption, government corruption was the fourth leg of that chair.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Let's talk to Sarah in Newport News. Hi, Sarah. You're on the air.
Hi. Thanks for having me. I want to go back to what one of your guests said at the beginning. He called the president a psychopath. Now, while I agree wholeheartely with everything else he called him, I don't see him as a psychopath. I see him as a sociopath. He's somebody who is amoral or immoral and only really cares about how he looks and if he gets away with it. Secondly, your other guest called him demonic. And I don't think we need to go to the devil. I think that there's a clear argument to be made for human evil here, and that just looking at human evil, greed, avarice, arrogance, that Trump is those things in spades. Thirdly, the Comey firing. Look, Comey, I'm just a regular citizen, but I care about this passionately. I care about the fact that our president lies daily. I care about that, and I'm offended by it, and I abhor it. And then when it comes to Comey, he doesn't have a leg to stand on. If he would have gotten rid of Comey when he first came on board, because Comey did overstep his bounds, he did break tradition and procedure with the letters he sent and the things he said about Hillary, I wouldn't be fighting him on that. It's the fact that he did it now after Comey has been in the news testifying in ways that embarrass the president or frustrate him. And that's so clearly what's going on. It's just right in our face. He's not my president, and I have never said that in my life, and I respect the office of the presidency. But I do not respect this man, not at all. I cannot speak strongly enough.
Wow. Okay, Sarah, thank you so much for your call. We've got that, and I'm going to let some folks respond to your comments. You had several there, so thank you very much. Go ahead, Bill. I'll let you start.
It was really kind of sad, really, the fact that we hear all of these slurs against this man, and she didn't mention that I called him a good father, a good businessman who's done a lot of good for America. He's done a lot of good for the things he's done in his years of how he has guarded himself and helped America become America. I think he did a lot of good when he contrasted where we were going, where I thought we were going. If we were going to Rome, I think that's where we were going. And I think he's trying to put a roadblock, a wall in front of that. My most important concern is about America and my family and my neighbors and my friends, and then it's the world. The President of the United States is respected because we have power. And that power is in what Will is saying and others are saying about the power of the people who want this way of governing people that's fair and honest. We have some rules that everybody should follow, and we're kind and considerate people. But to hear all of this demonization of this man, this president, to me is quite sad. And I didn't hear any of this yelling before on other people when other people did other things. And it's just really, really, truly, in my judgment, really sad.
You didn't hear. Well, we can go there, but I want to. But I want to let exactly.
No,
I want to let.
But Barbara, y'all are not being fair.
Well, let the caller get in.
Yeah, hang on, because
this is 1,000 to 1 here. I mean, I'm being besieged here.
If you're just joining us, we're talking about current events with the Another View Roundtable. Journalist, author, and talk show host Wil LaVeist, community activist Bill Thomas, political science professor at NSU Carol Pretlow, and professor of history and political science at Hampton University, Dr. Eric Claville. Let's talk to Anita in North Carolina. Hi, Anita. You're on the air.
Hi. I just wanted to say that I don't always agree with what Bill has to say, but today he's right on point. I agree with everything he has to say. I did not vote for Obama, but as the President of the United States, I respected him, and I would have never said anything bad against him. And I would never go to judge someone like Sarah did. I don't know Donald Trump or the President of the United States. And I just say, let's give him a chance.
Okay, thank you. So, what part of North Carolina are you in, Anita?
Moyock, North Carolina.
Where? Say it again.
Moyock.
Moyock. Okay, great. Thank you so much for calling in. We're going to let them respond.
Thank you, young lady. Thank you.
See, Bill, you're not by yourself.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Let me let Eric come, and then you will. Eric, go ahead.
To the first caller, I knew what I was calling the president because I understand what those definitions are. A psychopath is a person who has an abnormal mental behavior and disorder. Anyone that is a pathological liar and anyone that encourages aggression and fighting amongst individuals, which is also a sore seed of discord, that person is like a bully on the playground. That's a sociopath. And I mean, a psychopath and a sociopath, of course, one that has antisocial behaviors, which he does. I mean, there's reports. I mean, he goes.
So are you saying he's both?
He is both. Because he encourages dissension, he encourages fighting, and anyone that sits in front of you and just lies over and over and over again, that's a problem. That's a mental disorder. Okay, and again, we're not judging the president. We're simply commenting on the things that he has done. Okay?
You're judging.
Look, it is 114 days of absolute. Hold on, real quick. This is 114 days of absolute chaos.
When you're judging.
When Sean Spicer is hiding behind the bushes,
right?
Because he does not want to face the press.
According to the press.
Please turn the cameras off.
Well, but I mean, he admitted that he admitted he was saved by the bush. He really did. I mean, honestly,
somebody said,
is
that Sean Spicer?
But go ahead, Will, and then this is going to be the last comment on this. We got to move on to some other topics.
Hey, I was just going to say, I'm going to leave the mental health diagnosis to the doctors.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to jump in on all of that. But, I would just reiterate that I think that it's a mistake to say he's immature, he doesn't know what he's doing, he's this, that. I just think it's a mistake. He has been around politics for a long time, okay? He has, if you look in his background and you see who his mentors were, like George Steinbrenner, owner of the New York Yankees. If you know, like I grew up in New York as a Met fan, but knowing what was going on with Steinbrenner and how he ran his company and how he managed people and how he cultivated chaos and all of those types of things as a method of getting the best and winning, those are the things that motivate Trump. He's about, I want to win. And the thing is that he tells you what he is thinking. What's
wrong with that?
And that's what I'm saying. This is why I've said so many times that I actually think that in a lot of ways he is good for this country because people like the caller that you heard have awakened. And I've said it I voted twice for Obama, but he was Novocaine. He was Novocaine. We're about to talk about the State of Black America report. Mm-hmm. That's when you start getting into that, it will buttress my position on why he was Novocaine.
Absolutely. And let me before we get to State of Black America, and we are going to get there because that is really important too. It goes back to my what's happening behind the scenes in terms of our government. However, meanwhile, Education Secretary Betsy DeVos was invited to be the keynote graduation speaker by the president of Bethune-Cookman University, a historically black college and university, or HBCU. The students weren't happy, so let's take a listen.
I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak with you, and particularly with those who have disagreed with the invitation for me to be here. One of the hallmarks of higher education and of democracy is the ability to converse with and learn from those with whom we disagree.
If this behavior continues, your degrees will be mailed to you. choose which way you want to go.
The applause at the end was when all the students stood up and turned their backs towards the podium. Bill, I know you feel very passionate about this. So I'm going to start with you.
Oh, I can look at it as several ways. In 1976 at University of Kansas, we shut down our graduation for whatever reason and things, but we did not get in the way of people who wanted to graduate. Those who wanted to come there, the families that came there to see their children, their grandchildren and things, we had our own little separate outside protest, and we didn't interfere because decorum and civility and respecting others and listening to others and then we didn't graduate. I did the cap and gown, and I regret it today. I wish I would have done that. Of course, my mother was madder than Dick, but I'm just saying the fact that I just think it's the school, and they should have got their class better prepared to be able to listen. I remember maybe 2 years ago we had the great-great-grandson of Jefferson Davis on our campus, but we prepared the children and the students so that they understood that dialogue.
They're not children.
No, yeah, I look at them. Actually, my daughter was here at the time, so I'm kind of crossing over. But at the time, they were prepared to listen. You got to have civility. If you want to talk about Rome or you want to talk about some other third world nation where people don't want to listen to progressive ideas, it was a teachable moment, and it just missed it. And it's really a sad incident that did happen.
Carol?
Well, I think I agree with you, Bill, because I grew up in the burn, baby, burn generation, and I protested a lot. But on the other hand, there were faculty and mentors who prepared before the event. This is who is coming, and we would appreciate this, and that. So perhaps if they had some kind of communication with the students before she actually arrived. Now, that's not saying they didn't have the right to protest, because I uphold that. But I think there should have been some preparation.
No, they actually did have all those. This was a terrible move by the president of that university. He was told by alumni. He was told by individuals at the university. He was told by the president of the state chapter of the NAACP of Florida.
And they've called for his resignation.
And they had meeting groups with students. And they said, we don't want this woman here. This is our graduation. And he did it anyway. And look, it was a miscalculation on his part. It was a debacle on his part, and so forth. So he has to own it. I doubt if he returns, and I hope that he doesn't return to Bethune-Cookman because of that. Because if you're not, the universities aren't there to serve presidents. Presidents are there to serve the students and that university. And they could have brought someone else to that university to speak for the graduation. But based upon what this administration is doing and the surrogates of the administration, even though she may have had good intentions when she came, I'm not saying she didn't, maybe she did, but it was just a very bad move, a very bad look for that university. And again, he has to own it. That's egg on his face, and he shouldn't have done it.
Will?
I'm going to take a pushback view. I'm going to go journalist, because I had a very lively discussion with a dear friend of mine on this, who said, I agree with the diversity of conversation that's necessary, allowing these voices, but I don't agree that BCU should have been her platform, because we all clearly know where she stands on this distorted history of HBCUs. And, where this came from is that I was basically saying, but the jury is still out on whether or not she is anti-HBCUs. We know that she's made some statements that showed that she was tone deaf in terms of understanding the history. Absolutely insensitive.
But if Andrew Jackson was alive, he would have cleared that up.
Yeah, he would have cleared that up. But it's still, the jury is still out. She is the Secretary of Education. She is, for the most part, in there for 4 years. So what are we going to do for the next 4 years? Are you going to engage this administration?
Or yell and scream?
Because he's also thinking about the freshmen that are coming in. What's going to be the state of Bethune-Cookman for the next 4 years? So it's a multifaceted thing. I can see it from the point of view of the president as well. And I think that in him doing this, he knew the kind of pushback he was going to get. We need more people who are going to be courageous and stand up and have conviction. But what he just said in there about choose thee, who you shall serve, which side of me, that was very paternalistic. That was very, but at the same time, he had to, politically, the optics of it, he couldn't just stand there and not say anything.
The only thing, so you got to have leadership, and it's so easy to bend with the wind, and we don't want him. The people don't want him. This and that and the other. I respect a person who will step up and be fired if he gets to be fired, or be a leader and take it someplace else. The point is, HBCUs need funding. They need the attention of the Secretary of Education. We need the attention of large businesses and other avenues of pathways to sustain ourselves. And to ignore it and to stick our hands in the sand and continue to do things that we've done with the NAACP for the past 50 years and stay stuck in the mud, I think it's just not a good pathway.
Okay. Barbara joins us from Norfolk. Hi, Barbara, you're on the air.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Oh, she sounds nice.
Let me say this. I was so embarrassed. I cannot believe to prepare them for it. Who prepared them for that was their mother and their grandmother and all the women before, all the ladies that came before that taught them that you do not treat people in such a rude and an obnoxious manner. That woman was a guest. That could have been their home. They could have sat there in silence. They did not have to treat her in that manner. I mean, listen, I could have burned her up, No, I don't believe in anything that she stands for. But they were educated people. Those children have degrees. Some of those, they didn't have to come. They could have just ignored her completely. But to behave in such a manner, I could not believe it.
Barbara, can I ask a call or something?
Go ahead. Yeah, sure.
Now, because I respected this point of view, especially as a parent and all of that. I respect your point of view. But what the students that were also doing is very intelligent on their part, is recognizing that this was going to be a photo op. This was going. So hold on just a second. So now the story now is that they protested, but she still got a chance to have her voice heard. If they had sat there in silence, the story would have been that Bethune-Cookman students sat there in silence and listened to Betsy DeVos speak to them.
In
right,
agreement.
Right. And so she still got a chance to have her voice heard. But the story is very different. And that's what they were protesting. They were recognizing, look, you're coming here to use us as a photo opportunity. And that's what they were protesting against.
And then how about silence? Silence. How about then no one shows up? How about in silence, we heard you, and how about signs, and how about half of the audience stays out? How about there is a way to do that?
As a parent, I would have been totally upset to have spent all that money having my child go to school, and then we not show up.
No.
Okay,
Barbara, I agree with you, Barbara. You have told the story in a very good way.
Barbara, thank you so much for your call. We appreciate that because she does bring a different perspective. Eric,
the woman was a guest.
Okay, hold on.
But listen, that is the very reason why this was a terrible idea to bring her there in the first place. Okay? Don't bring her. All right? You knew this was going to happen. They had meetings with the students. The students told them, we don't want the person here. Alumni, students, faculty, also presidents of the NAACP, yes, the state of Florida, don't bring her. All right, and he did it anyway. So he's got to own it, because even if the students stayed in silent, even if they just sat there, that would have been just as rude and disrespectful as them booing. It was just a terrible, terrible idea.
Okay, we got to move on because time is running out. We still got other things to talk about. Okay, the National Urban League released its 2017 State of Black America report. The theme this year is Protect Our Progress. One of the areas is criminal justice, yet the Justice Department says the officers involved in the shooting death of Alton Sterling did not violate his civil rights. And you have the shooting death of 15-year-old Jordan Edwards recently. The officer who shot into the car with a shotgun was charged with murder, but yet he's out on bond. So, and now today, Sessions announces that that they are going to pursue the strongest level of punishment for people who are arrested with drugs and so forth. It's back to the war on drugs. Well, the thought was that we were changing from that because it wasn't working. So what's happening behind the scenes in terms of the progress that we've made as Black Americans and kind of all these executive orders and changes that are coming down now that could derail that, Eric?
Sure. You know, I'm going to be very transparent. Well, I think I always am, but I'm going to be very transparent as it relates to what this administration represents. When you see the Trump pen signs in the yard or Make America Great, they're synonymous with Confederate flags and what those flags stood for during that particular time. There is a rumbling and a very loud voice behind closed doors that believe that because our country is getting more black and brown, because individuals see that people of color are flexing their constitutional rights and challenging authority when they act and misappropriate their authority, they're afraid. It's the same piece from the playbook after the Civil War. You know, blacks are free, get your guns, they're going to come in, they're going to rape your women, steal your land, and things of that nature. So there is fear of white individuals who have power, who have influence, and who have control of their public policy and business in their municipalities, localities, and states. And they are wanting to go back to the laws where they had 100% control. And again, I talked about the meeting that Sheriff Gabe Morgan had with the Attorney General. We see every bit of it is true with the memos that came out. And these are very troubling policies that the Attorney General himself is forcing up on the U.S. Attorney's offices and charging them with penalty of losing federal funding. Okay, so civil rights gains that we have gotten in the last 50 years with the help, yes, of the NAACP and other organizations. Now, of course, we can do more with business, we can do more with education, and I am 100% a critic of our organizations for not having that foresight to work toward those goals. But all those gains that we have, we're looking at those possibly being turned back with the implementation of these policies, these White House executive orders, and these bills that are being passed by a Republican-controlled Congress, House, Representatives, Senate, and presidency, which he will sign in order to keep his base vote. And then finally, with a court that has become more conservative than when Justice Scalia was on there with the confirmation of our current Supreme Court Justice, Neil Gorsuch. So the deck is stacked. And let me tell you just one quick thing. When Merrick Garland being recommended by the Republicans to be the new head of the FBI, don't get excited about that. That position, they have this gentleman who's they're eyeing to place at Chief Justice of the D.C. Circuit, which we know is a very powerful circuit because they're the ones to first hear the laws and challenges of constitutional issues that come out of Congress. They have a person they want to put there. And if Merrick Garland is gone, they know that they can now swing and survive any constitutional challenge that comes through that particular circuit.
So how do we fight back, Will? I mean, what do we need to do as Black America then if this erosion is starting to happen? A, how do we get people to pay attention first and foremost? And then B, what do we do about it?
Well, I think that, you know, when I look at the State of Black America report, and I alluded to it earlier, is that I look at 8 years of Obama. Progress has been minimal at best. Second term, there was an opportunity to really engage the entire nation on this issue of race. Didn't do it. Black Lives Matter movement rises during the Obama movement, during the Ferguson uprising. He totally did nothing. He totally turned his back on that. And I wrote a piece in Ver magazine where I talked about Obama's legacy at the end of the day is going to be that he was a reluctant race man. They're repealing Obamacare. Bloomberg News talks about Republicans rolling back 14 Obama rules. You talk about things that have been going on and while we're talking about Comey being fired and all of that.
He rolled them back.
Rolled back 14 using the the law, the Congressional Review Act, that hadn't successfully been used in
100 years.
So they're pulling out every kind of every stop to make them
So
change.
here we had an opportunity with our leadership, NAACP, Urban League.
Yes.
I mean, Mark Morial, look, he's making 400 G's for almost 20 years and presiding over minimal progress of African-American community. So what do people need to do? People need to really start looking at their families, start looking at what is your destiny, what is your, like I'm looking at LaVeist Inc.
Yeah, absolutely.
And start figuring this thing out and engaging this country that our ancestors bled, sweat, tears to put us in a position to engage the entire country. You better get on it because our leaders, Kareem Brown down in Florida our leaders
are falling apart.
Yeah,
in jail. I'm at a loss of words. I mean, I think Will said it all. I think that we keep going down the same pathway with the NAACP, and they're good people. I'm not trying to put anybody down and all this other stuff. We need to have economic and families and values. We need to know how to spend our money. People say, well, Bill, you vote every 4 years for the president. No, I vote every day. Every time I pull $1 out of my pocket and give it to a white businessman who's probably a Confederate, and they're all not, so I think that's a ludicrous argument. I had a Trump sign in my yard. I'm not no Confederate. I'm just an individual who wants my family to be safe and whole and healthy.
So, and do you believe, because we had talked about how the white males, that Trump has lost 10 points over the past month because he's not delivering on a lot of the things that he said he was going to deliver on. Do you think he will?
No, he can't. And he's smart enough to realize that. The whole economic imbalance has now shifted. And it's just an inevitability that people of brown and people of color are going to be in control of America within 30, 40 years. It's just an inevitability. But I go back to Will. Until we embrace the things that our forefathers and great-great-grandparents and stuff, our family, our values, our dollars, our economics, the government is not going to get us there. It's just not going to do it. We have to afford to be able to bolster up Norfolk State and Hampton University and our churches and the things that are among us. And that's how Will and I become really close over the last 4 or 5 years.
No,
in thought. No, he knows what I'm saying. He knows what I'm talking. Because before, there was no, and I could care less about that because what I think is, because it's true. I know what he's doing. I've known the struggles that he has. I bought his books when he was out there selling them. So I understand it. Yes. So I understand that. And my point real quick is that we have to abandon the old process. It's not working. Government and the Constitution as set forth is there. We have to empower ourselves with values and spirit and families and economics.
Engage the system.
Well,
yes.
Yeah.
And engage the system.
I never thought I would agree with you totally, but I do. The thing of it is how do we begin to do this? Because we can talk about what we need to do, but it's the how. How do we get started from the bottom and move upward?
Eric, let's see if that gets
what
answer.
Specifically?
Yeah, very quickly. To do that, we need government, and the reason why I need government is because we need policies that are not restrictive upon African-American upward mobility, but we need policies that help, and also what I call corrective measures, not affirmative action. I'm not in agreement with affirmative action because it doesn't work for African-Americans, but corrective action works because it identifies the policies and the restrictions put on a certain people, and it helps to correct that. Secondly, I believe that we need a recipe for success, which is what I call free. In order to be free, you got to focus on your family. And I say, Bill and I, we agree on this.
Absolutely.
We got to focus on your family. You know, a successful society have mothers and fathers in homes raising their children that take pride in where they live, and you buy where you own. Secondly, we got to have individual and collective responsibility. Collective responsibility on our society and institutions, individual responsibility for us, and also we need education and economic opportunities to help us to live what's called the American dream.
Amen.
Okay, John from Grafton. Real quick, John, we only got a couple minutes left.
Okay, well, thanks for having me, ma'am.
Sure.
I just wanted to say that I didn't necessarily agree with the comment that the Trump signs are synonymous with the Confederate flag. I'm originally from California, and I'm living in Virginia. I voted for Obama twice and Trump once. And I think that a comment like that is pretty close to what Hillary said about, the basket of deplorables. And I think that maybe drawing a line right down between the two supporters of the two parties is not going to get people on the same page. And I don't think it's going to help. I think that it's general. And, I mean, frankly, the rhetoric with Trump talking about Muslims, a lot of what I'm hearing on the show right now is rhetoric against Caucasian males.
Amen.
And I just...
Okay, we're going to
Amen.
let me let the panel respond. Thank you so much for your call, John. We appreciate that. Eric?
Well, listen.
Real quick.
Look,
you got 2 minutes.
It's not rhetoric. If you look at the policies and what these individuals in power are saying, let's take a look at the Senate Working Committee for Healthcare for America. 13 white males.
Democrats and Republicans, it's all the same.
13 white males. You have women Republicans. As a matter of fact, Susan Collins of Maine was one of the senators that put up that terrible bill with Senator Cassidy out of Louisiana. Okay? And they excluded her from the group. So again, these are the conversations that are going on within these particular groups. These are conversations that's going on in Washington. And I'll say this lastly is that Republicans are scared out of their minds at what this president is doing on a daily basis. Paul Ryan has yet to respond to this Comey fire. He's in hiding. Mitch McConnell is hiding. Sean Spicer is hiding. Everybody's hiding.
Okay, last thing, because we got 2 minutes left.
The Bush brothers.
Say Mother's Day. Will, what do you want to say about mothers?
Hey,
Hurry
I a shout out to those like me whose mother has passed. Remember those happy times, and also a shout out to the mothers who are raising children and not biologically theirs. That's not always an easy thing to do.
Okay.
So we cherish
Bill?
it.
My children's mother's not with us anymore, but the last weekend I was with my children. We took a good picture, and I just prayed and thanked her for being such a lovely sweetheart that put these three individuals on this face of this earth. Love her. Love you, baby.
Wow.
Carol.
Happy Mother's Day to everybody. And my mother isn't here, but I have been blessed with a lot of sisters and friends who are my surrogate mothers. Thank you.
Eric.
Yeah, and my mother passed as well, Betty Relaford Claville. We love you to death. And I also have another mother, my stepmother, Margaret Claville, who stepped in to help raise the rest of us after my mother died. I love them both, and I really appreciate and thank God for them.
And my mother, Eleanor Ruby Eleanor Ham, and she is still living. I lost my dad, but my mom is still here, and we are all closer than ever. So thank you, Mom, for everything, because without her listening to me talk all the time, I might not have been a talk show host. You never know. Thank you, Roundtable. As always, you guys are just the best. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for listening to Another View. If you'd like to hear this show again or share it with a friend, go to our website, anotherviewradio.org, and download the podcast. By the way, we're very excited that you're listening to the podcast of our show. Our numbers have doubled, so keep it up and be sure to let your friends and family know too. Next week on Another View, a new vision for the city of Portsmouth. Find out what city leadership and residents are doing to make Portsmouth shine. Our theme music was composed and performed by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Victor Bowen is our audio engineer, and Trey Watson answered our phones. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee, wishing a very special Happy Mother's Day to every woman who has room in her heart to love another. We'll see you next time for Another View.